Movidiam podcast. Join the conversation with global innovators as they share their journeys, discuss the state of the industry, and share insight into the future of media for brands, agencies, and production companies.
Hello and welcome to the Movidiam Creative Leaders podcast. Today I'm delighted to welcome Nick Allen, who's the EVP Managing Director in New York RGA. Nick, welcome to the Movidiam podcast.
Thanks very much, George. Thank you for having me. Really pleased to be here.
Nick, it's a very interesting time in the kind of global environment, and obviously the creative business and the digital business is being affected by that. And we'll come to that later. But before we get to that, the Movidiam, the Creative Leaders, is famous as a podcast series for kind of interrogating people's journey into the creative business and creative industries. Could you kind of dial the calendar back and tell us a little bit about how you got started in the industry?
Yeah, of course. First thing I'll say is I'm glad this is a podcast because I have the sort of pandemic hair and beard situation going on where if there was any visual element, I think I'd be scaring your audience because I'm in line for a pandemic buzz cut, I think. So
I'm sure
the hair and beard have kind of taken over.
I'm sure Clippers is a second phase area that's going to be going up. Their market price is going up right now.
Big time. How did I get started? Well, I did economics and management at Leeds as a degree, and actually I just always have been fascinated by people and culture and the way in which brands sort of have a role in our society. So I kind of just fell into marketing and advertising and have taken a really meandering road by design, really, through my career, sort of working in different types of disciplines, working across different sectors, making sure that I have jobs that are across different parts of the globe. I lived in Sydney for a bit, now I'm living in New York, spent most of my time in London, but I'm just so passionate and interested in people and in what we do, and that's why I'm really excited to be at RGA now, having worked at great shops like Anomaly and the Brooklyn Brothers and a few other places. But I just feel like we are in a really interesting time, and it's a great time to be in this kind of in our industry and in our sector.
Now, RGA is a famous sort of top of the podium sort of agency group. And what's your for our listeners that might be more production based than the agency or the digital side? What's your core strength and expertise? I mean, originally it was the Superman credits historically, but what's your core expertise today? And you've obviously got a big association with Nike.
That's right, yeah. I mean, really what we do is we help clients transform their businesses. We help them navigate the seas of disruption and change. Obviously, there are so many forces of disruption all around us, whether that's commercial, media. Obviously, we now have real massive disruption due to this pandemic. But what we do is we partner with clients and really work with them on their marketing innovation or their digital experiences. And we work with them very much upstream as business partners to try and shape their strategies for how they can move forward. And then we have the whole gamut end to end from branding and design through to experience transformation, marketing transformation, and everything in between.
And you mentioned the pandemic, and it's difficult to go any farther without sort of talking about that briefly, because that is a majorly disruptive global event. I mean, there's some pretty big numbers about the turmoil in the economic markets and what it's doing, or how it's accelerating the decline of businesses that were in decline or extinguishing them altogether. I mean, there's some real challenges. On the flip side, of course, there is this digital opportunity. I mean, if you can call it that, and it's a horrible thing to do when so many people are struggling and suffering, but there is this opportunity of digital is being accelerated.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think there's, it's obviously been a really, really tough time. I started this new role as managing director of RGA New York in January of this year, and obviously came into the role and into the year full of optimism, full of buoyancy, the decade stretching ahead, and obviously that's all had to be put on hold to a certain extent as we deal with this huge global pandemic and all of the sort of issues around it. I think The other side of it is that we have to take this opportunity to take a strategic lens and really understand how do we use this moment in time to reinvent and renew. And I mean that from an industry perspective, not just RGA. You know, we're a company that's always embraced change. But we need to make sure as an industry that we say, well, this is a catalyst for so many different types of disruptions, and it's bringing change, as you've said, to industries that were already in decline, or indeed quite often to sectors and industries that were buoyant and that are now seeing massive drops. Levels of unemployment are going through the roof. And I think that we all need to, as an industry, start to say, how do we strategically look at this and start to analyse how we can adapt and change to be better, stronger, more fit for purpose, more relevant in the new normal? How do we eradicate some of the structural inefficiencies that have dogged our industry for a few years now?
No, it's a very interesting point, and I think a lot of this stuff is behavioural, isn't it? And I think an application, or you need a killer app, as they say, to get an application or a range of applications in a similar space, into market and working and informing people. So you look at something like Zoom, which is the video conferencing tool, going from 20 million users to several hundred million users. Now, that behaviourally has educated perhaps a decade or a generation that wasn't going to perhaps get onto that sort of technology. So it sort of speeds things up. Are you thinking that this is an opportunity for RGA to kind of really elaborate on the digital tool sets and platforms that you create for clients in this direction?
Yeah, I think so. I think it actually is kind of almost slightly different to that. It's almost at a different altitude to that, in so much as it's beyond kind of the digital tools or digital innovation. It's actually, how do we elevate up as an industry, as partners, to make sure that we are genuinely business partners with our clients, that we're helping them understand and unlock the challenges that they face as a result of this pandemic. So, for example, there's some big trends that I'm seeing. Of course, we're all aware that the travel, transport, entertainment and leisure industries have all taken a massive hit as a result of this pandemic. And I think if any of us agency folk have clients in that space, they don't need marketing ideas or digital tools at this moment. What they need are partners who can help them genuinely innovate, that can help them with radical reinvention, to embrace change and new ways of thinking and new business models. How do our clients in those sectors radically change to be relevant in the new normal? So I think there's kind of, yes, of course, digital and user experience and interfaces are absolutely a part of what the new normal is going to be, and RGA are well positioned to deliver on that. But there's actually a higher altitude way in which we as an industry need to be partners to our clients.
That's interesting there, because I kind of think, when you think about the startup ecosystem and sort of accelerators and digital shops that come together to sort of find talent and club people together and raise capital, in a way, you're already very established and you're doing that for much larger companies, but still offering them a skunk works.
Yeah, that's right. And I know you know this, but maybe some of your audience don't. At RGA we have an accelerator program, a ventures program, and we've had over 100 companies go through this accelerator program, and actually that gives us that unique place in the market, whereby we can be working with big clients like Google and Verizon and Ally Bank and Disney, but equally we are able to work with an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, startups, the developer community, to really start to bring innovative thinking to all of those bigger clients. So we certainly work with a lot of the sort of smaller startups and that real cutting edge entrepreneurial community to make sure that we're always staying front foot with some of those bigger global clients that we work with.
Yeah, very interesting. And looking at the, just in this current moment when teams are remote and all sorts of different collaborations are going on, if the agency is in the building down the road and the client's in the building up the road, what differences there's a lot of debate about in-house and out-house, certainly in the UK and across Europe and sort of production side of things. But what is the difference between? And also, we're seeing a lot of brands headhunt people from agencies. Is it a challenge for you to hold on to talent that might sort of ship off to Disney or Google?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think there's a few things kind of packed into that question. I think, at RGA, we really pride ourselves on attracting the best talent. And when we get talked about by Fast Company as one of the most innovative companies in the world, when we get talked about by Gartner as one of the most impressive sort of digital marketing agencies in the world, or when we sort of pick up awards at various award shows, it's not for the awards themselves, it's to make sure that we are getting that recognition from peers, because it means we can attract the best talent, it means we can keep the best talent. And of course, we need to make sure that we have a culture that really fosters the creative spirit of that community and that talent. So, we work very hard to make sure that we have that great talent at RGA and that we have a culture that keeps that talent at RGA. I think that your question about there's a couple of different things. One, the geographical element of having a physical footprint and an agency in sort of in the middle of New York or middle of London, middle of Shanghai, wherever it might be, and clients down the road. And the other is kind of the in-house piece. So I'll just take those two sort of individually. One, the physical footprint sort of component. I think that's one of the sort of structural inefficiencies that we're going to see is sort of broken down by what we're seeing with this pandemic. It's a catalyst for showing us all how remote working and more atomic structures are actually the way forward. It's going to enable us as an industry to reduce overheads. We're not going to need quite as much of that expensive real estate in the middle of the most expensive cities in the world. We're going to be able to use physical spaces in different ways to collaborate and create more effectively, but without the need for every single individual to work in a desk. And that means we're going to be able to access greater breadth of talent across different geographical spaces, because borders are going to become kind of irrelevant. We're going to be able to work with people in all different parts of the world in a much more fluid, atomic way. So I think that there's some really interesting stuff there in terms of the way in which clients and agencies interact. Actually, our partnerships with our clients have become even stronger over this pandemic when we've actually not been able to sit in rooms with them. So it's sort of broken down some of the stigma or sort of traditional way of thinking about, well, we can't hire that person, or we need to make sure we're all in the same room. And I think it's going to have a big impact on business travel, because people are realizing actually they don't need to fly across country or to another continent to have a meeting. They can actually achieve a lot via Zoom or any of these other video conferencing apps. So that's one thing. I think that's a really interesting kind of trend that we'll see more of, and I think it's a positive thing for the industry. The other piece that you mentioned there was around we talked a bit about the holding on to talent, but you talked as well about in-house agencies. And I think this comes back to my point about working with our clients at the right altitude. Because I think as a creative industry, we're in danger of getting squeezed in the middle and not being relevant enough to our clients to be at the top table and to be talking to them about their business challenges and working with them to develop the strategies and bringing for their business to be successful, and bringing creative thinking at that upstream level. If we're not able to do that, then we're being squeezed down by the consultancies who are able to do that.
It's particularly interesting what you say about the consultancies who have the sort of C-suite attention, and sometimes at times probably can make an agency feel a little bit like a second-class citizen.
Yeah, it's interesting because we, again, kudos to Bob Greenberg and Sean Lyons and the leadership team at RGA. They've been very prescient and in the way that they have continued to evolve RGA and what RGA stands for and the type of agency it is over the last 43 years. that it's been in existence. And we do have a model where we work with clients, and there are sort of three components to the agency: business transformation, which is very much that upstream consultancy offering; experience transformation, which is very much products and services, digital interfaces, digital innovation, etc. And then marketing transformation, which is sort of that culture up, comms, advertising, social, whatever you want to call it. So blending those things together is very much what clients are looking for right now, rather than an agency to do sort of digital work and an agency to do an ad and then a McKinsey or a consultancy to help them strategize. If they can, they're looking to get all of that in one place so we can do the thinking and then the delivery and implementation across the marketing spectrum all in one place.
Very interesting. Well, Nick, look, it's been absolutely fascinating talking to you today. And I've just got one note here about the intersection of innovation and kindness. And I think you've got a recent project, Merch Aid. Could you just tell us a little bit about this? Because this has come out of the blue at this time, and it's a very, very appealing project.
Yeah, I think it's great that you mentioned that, because Merch Aid is something we're really proud of. And I think one thing that we keep in mind at RGA as we work with clients, or indeed develop our own projects and initiatives, is that we're always trying to create a more human future. And I think that's a responsibility for the industry. You know, the relationship that consumers are having with data is changing. And people are anxious and fearful sometimes about the way in which big companies and governments, etc., are using their data. So I think, it's super important that we as an industry are always thinking about creating a more human future and making sure that the work we're putting out into the world, the actions that our clients are taking, are reflective of a society that we want to be a part of, that we want to live in. So we're really proud to have created this initiative, Merch Aid. So it's something that was launched in New York about 6 weeks ago, and now we just launched in Austin, and LA is next, and it could well be something that goes even further. But basically, we have paired up designers and illustrators with small local businesses around New York and now Austin, as I say, to create original sort of merchandise, T-shirts, totes, prints, which people can go online and buy. And so it's a really simple mechanism, simple model, but it's come from RGA, an entrepreneurial, creative team kind of got together and just created this business, which has now done over, I think, $150,000 of sales of this original merchandise. All of that has gone directly to the local businesses. And obviously, at this time, this pandemic, it's so important that we're helping to support our local businesses. Yeah. So that's something that we're really proud of. Yeah.
Very cool. And just the more human future, it just sort of chimes with me there that when, as a digital shop and working strategically with clients, and some of those very large clients are very algorithmically based customers. And, and I think Amazon, I don't know whether they're a client of yours or not, but you look at something like Alexa, which actually, when you get into the voice territory, you do have the potential to kind of eradicate brand because you can't see the product. So it's quite interesting how these algorithms and aggregators of data like Amazon can actually put pressure on quite a lot of brands.
Yeah, I think there's a huge trend around how, and our industry needs to get on top of it and be at the forefront of it, is how do we marry creativity and data in new and interesting ways? Because I think we've all been there where you might shop for something online, you might look for a new piece of furniture, or looking to buy a present for your partner or something. And then for the next 3 weeks, you're basically stalked around the internet by whatever it is you searched for. So I might have, looked for something for my wife, and then for the 3 weeks, I'm being kind of stalked by bras and it's kind of just this ridiculous programmatic algorithm that attacks you. Whereas actually what we need to do is be much more sort of human about it and future facing and sort of human centric to start thinking about, well, what is the way in which brands and creativity can actually add value to consumers rather than sort of data being used to stalk them. I think, as an example of one of the clients that we work with, and I personally have worked very closely with, is Verizon. It's a huge company in the States. We have worked with them to create some really powerful, human-centric kind of initiatives. So one of those is Pay It Forward Live. When the pandemic started, we worked with the Verizon team to create this program, Pay It Forward Live, which has been 2 virtual concerts, basically, every week. We've had Billie Eilish, Chance the Rapper, Usher, Dave Matthews Band. We have these sort of top tier musicians once a week, and also gamers once a week. We had a bunch of NASCAR and race car drivers doing virtual racing, and we're getting kind of between 5 and 7 million views of this live via Twitch or Twitter or Yahoo every sort of twice a week. But the whole point of this is that it gives Verizon a way to help small businesses. So basically, if consumers are watching, hashtag Pay It Forward Live, they then tag their local businesses, whether it's a nail salon, a restaurant, a bar, or whatever, and then Verizon will match all of those donations, and they've donated $7.5 million so far to small businesses around America. And so they've created, and we were part of that team to create this kind of program, which is now twice a week, as I say, and is really helping local businesses around the United States.
Amazing. Well, Nick, thanks very much indeed for your time. We've had a good 45 minutes there on the podcast. So thanks very much indeed for your time today. And perhaps we can catch up 6 months down the line when no doubt the landscape has changed again.
I would love that. And again, thank you very much for the time. It's been a real pleasure chatting. Thank you.
You've been listening to the Movidiam podcast. Movidiam is a world-class network of production talent complemented by secure tools that blend hiring, communication, and payments. Find out more at movidiam.com.